Every rooftop glittering with solar panels, every electric vehicle humming quietly down the freeway, every 5G tower blinking in the night sky, they all share a single, silent dependency: silver. Not a luxury, not jewelry, but an industrial lifeline. And the world is burning through it like there is no tomorrow. The story you're about to hear is not about a distant, abstract future. It's about a mathematical collision that has already begun. Silver inventories on major exchanges are down massively in a few short years. Solar panel demand alone is set to swallow hundreds of millions of ounces annually. Industrial use is doubling in less than a decade, while mine supply just sits there, flat, stagnant, unmoved by the urgency of the moment. But here's the twist most people miss. Silver is not just an industrial metal. It is also money, arguably the oldest form of money the world has ever known. For 5,000 years, humans have trusted silver to store value when governments and empires failed. That dual role makes silver unique in the commodity universe. It is both a critical input for the energy transition and a monetary refuge when currencies crack. When exploding industrial demand collides with a fragile monetary system built on debt and derivatives, what you get isn't a gentle price adjustment. You get panic, dislocation, and forced recognition. This is not about hype. This is pattern recognition. There is a four-stage mechanism that has governed every commodity supercycle in modern history. Stage 1, complacent abundance. Stage 2, demand shock meets inelastic supply. Stage 3, recognition of structural deficit. Stage 4, panic and price detonation. Oil has followed it, wheat has followed it. Palladium has followed it. And now silver, the most boring metal in the room, is quietly stepping into stage 3. The machine is already running. The only real question left is, are you seeing it in time? To understand what's coming for silver, you have to see the pattern play out in other crises. Start with oil in the 1970s. For decades after World War II, oil was unimaginably cheap, $3 a barrel, gasoline for cents a gallon. The entire global economy, from American suburbs to European factories, was built on the assumption that this cheap energy was infinite. That was stage 1, abundance and total complacency. Then came stage 2. Demand exploded as Europe rebuilt, highways spread, and car ownership became normal. But geology doesn't care about economic dreams. U.S. Oil production peaked around 1970. And suddenly, the world's main supplier could no longer simply pump more on command. Stage 3 hit with a geopolitical spark, the Yom Kippur War and the OPEC embargo. Overnight, it wasn't just about barrels, it was about the brutal realization that cheap energy was over. Gas lines curled around blocks, factories slowed, the market woke up to the fact that supply could not expand fast enough. Stage 4 was the detonation. Oil didn't just go up. It went from $3 to $35 in a decade. Economies buckled, inflation ripped through societies, and central banks lost control. The same machine turned in the Irish potato famine. An entire population depended on one cheap food source, potatoes, and ignored the risk. When blight hit, there was still wheat in the world, still grain on ships, but prices exploded so violently the poor simply couldn't afford to buy. The problem was not total absence of food. It was that price dislocation moved faster than relief, faster than politics, faster than morality. 1 million died, 2 million fled, and a nation was transformed. Fast forward to palladium in the 2000s, boring, ignored, and cheap for years, until suddenly it became essential for catalytic converters under new global emissions rules. Demand surged. Supply couldn't follow because palladium is mostly a byproduct metal. After years of deficits, inventories vanished. Prices ran from $500 to $3,000 in 4 years. The pattern repeated: complacency, inelastic supply, recognition, panic. 3 different centuries, 3 different commodities, 1 machine. Now take that exact pattern and lay it over silver. For roughly 40 years, silver has been treated like an afterthought. In inflation-adjusted terms, it trades cheaper today than at its spike in 1980, despite decades of money printing, population growth, and a total technology revolution. Why? Because for a long stretch, supply slightly exceeded demand. Governments dumped strategic reserves. Massive deposits were developed. Investors got bored and left. That was stage one. Complacency so deep that an entire generation dismissed silver as dead money. Stage two started quietly, almost invisibly. In 2010, solar installations barely registered in global energy statistics. Today, solar is the fastest growing energy source on Earth, and every crystalline silicon panel depends on silver paste for its efficiency. No other metal performs that role at the same scale. At the same time, electric vehicles arrived, each using significantly more silver than a gas car. Add in 5G infrastructure, medical devices, and the endless stream of electronics, and industrial demand has climbed toward 1 billion ounces per year. But the real problem sits on the supply side. Global mine production of silver peaked around the mid-2010s and has been flat to declining since. This is not a market where you can flip a switch and flood supply. Roughly 70% of silver comes as a byproduct of mining other metals: zinc, lead, copper. If those base metals aren't booming, silver output can't just be ramped up to meet demand. Meanwhile, mining capital expenditures have been hammered for years. Few new large deposits are being developed. It takes 7 to 10 years to bring a new mine online, and nobody invested for this moment. So you now have the classic setup: soaring, policy-driven industrial demand colliding with inelastic, underinvested supply. Stage two is complete. The fuse has been lit, which brings us to where we stand right now: the brutal, quiet beginning of stage three, recognition of deficit. Stage three is where the spreadsheet math turns into real-world tension. For silver, that stage is no longer hypothetical. It is visible in public data. A few years ago, major exchanges reported hundreds of millions of ounces of registered silver. Today, that number has collapsed to a fraction of global annual demand, weeks of supply, not years. The Silver Institute has already logged multiple consecutive years of structural deficit. The world is consuming more silver than it produces, and the gap is being plugged by draining inventory. That's not sustainable. Physical premiums are quietly rising. Retail investors see it when they try to buy coins and wait longer or pay more over spot. Industrial users see it in contracts that take longer to fill. Meanwhile, the paper market leveraged futures, and synthetic exposure still trades the illusion of abundance. For every ounce of physical silver, dozens of ounces change hands on paper every day. As long as almost no one asks for large-scale delivery, the illusion holds. But that's exactly what begins to crack in stage three. Behind the scenes, major industrial players are already acting. Solar manufacturers, electronics firms, even defense suppliers start to build quiet buffers, small stockpiles, just-in-case inventories. These are not YouTube speculators. These are corporations with risk teams who can read the same supply-demand charts you can. They know mining projects take close to a decade. They know that byproduct metals will not suddenly double production. They know that energy transition targets are written into law. Stage 4 panic begins the moment one of these players is forced to admit publicly, "We cannot source what we need at current prices and timelines." That is the spark. Headlines explode. Other firms stampede into the market, bidding for the same dwindling pool of physical metal. Governments, recognizing silver's role in energy, defense, and infrastructure, step in to secure their own strategic supplies. The paper market strains, then snaps. Exchanges change rules, raise margins, and push participants toward cash settlement instead of delivery. At that point, spot prices cease to reflect reality. Physical silver trades at whatever the highest bidder will pay, and the chart stops being a staircase and becomes a cliff. This is where most people fall back on comforting stories. Technology will save us. We'll just substitute another metal. Recycling will cover the gap, but when you zoom in, those lines collapse. There's no scalable substitute for silver in high-efficiency solar. Copper oxidizes. Aluminum simply doesn't conduct well enough. You can't rewrite the periodic table by policy. Recycling sounds heroic, but the reality is brutal. The amount of silver per device is so small that recovery rates stay low, and solar panels sit in service for decades before anyone even thinks about scrapping them. That metal is effectively locked away. New mining? On paper, sure. In reality, permitting timelines stretch for years. Local opposition grows louder, and capital markets are reluctant to fund long, risky projects in politically unstable regions. 7 to 10 years from discovery to meaningful production is normal, not worst case. Meanwhile, laws in Europe, China, and the United States are forcing an energy transition on tight timelines, backed by trillions in subsidies and entire industries retooled around solar, EVs, and electrification. Policy does not ask silver's permission. At the same time, the monetary system is straining under record debt, chronic deficits, and persistent inflation risk. When trust in paper assets erodes, investors traditionally flee to hard assets, gold, land, and yes, silver. That means silver sits at the crossroads of three unstoppable forces: exploding industrial demand, a brewing monetary crisis, and a supply base with no quick fix. When those forces fully converge, price doesn't just rise, it dislocates. This is not financial advice. It is an invitation to look at the machine yourself. Pull the Silver Institute reports, check exchange inventories, read solar and EV demand forecasts. Compare annual mine supply with total consumption. You will see the same thing: consumption exceeding production, inventories draining, commitments to future demand locked in by law. The pattern that played out in oil, wheat, and palladium is now running through silver in real time. The wealth transfer that follows will not be kind to people who trusted headlines over math. The question is not whether silver reacts. It's whether you recognize stage 3 before the rest of the world wakes up to stage 4.